Good morning. Welcome to another week. It's Monday morning, and I wanted to help you start your week off right by getting a little sneak peek into the book of James. We're going to be starting a Bible study on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock in the book of James. A great little book that's so practical and so very suited to the times we're living in now. The book was written by James, the brother of the Lord Jesus, and it was written to the tribes of the dispersion, the Jews who had been scattered after the great persecution that followed the death of Stephen, if you know your book of Acts. And these Jews were scattered from Jerusalem into all parts of the land beyond Jerusalem. And they were scattered, they were dispersed, they were separated from each other, they were separated from family and friends and from their normal lives that they had known. Now, is this sounding at all familiar to you based on the situation we're in now with COVID? So much has changed in our lives. So much is not normal, or I guess the new normal. And so James is writing to these people who are suffering greatly, not only because of the change of routine, but also because of persecution that they experience outside of Jerusalem. So there's a lot more going on with them than there is with us, but we have our own trials. And in the first verses of the book of James, James speaks about those trials. And here's what he says. He says, "Count it all joy, brethren, when you experience various trials of various kinds, knowing that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing." And so James, in the first verses, goes from their trials to the place where they are perfect and complete and lack nothing. Now, for some of us, as we look at trials in our lives, we see them as obstacles that keep us from moving forward at all with our lives. And yet James takes them from their trials to the place where they lack nothing and they're perfect and complete or mature in their faith. And he marks out for them, because they can't always see it in their situation, he marks out for them the way that God has, the straight ahead process that God has for them in our lives, in their lives, and has for us in our lives. Because the things in our lives that we see as obstructions, as obstacles, as problems, God sees as ways to grow our faith, to shape our hearts and our lives to the place where we will be perfect, not meaning without sin, but that we will be complete and mature in our faith, more mature in our faith, and that we will lack nothing. Why? Because we depend upon God for everything. And so those are James' first words to these hurting people. And I offer them to you this morning because not only of the times we're living in, of COVID and being separated from family and friends, particularly as Thanksgiving comes along. We were talking, some of us, about what Thanksgiving will look like this year. Well, it will be different. And so, but I offer these words of encouragement to you, not only because of our situation, but also to remind you, as James reminded these believers, of the straightforward path that God has for us, at least from his perspective. He wants us to push forward and break through. We learned that yesterday in the message. Psalm 1 speaks about the successful person, the prosperous person. Doesn't have anything to do with money or fame or fortune. It means that we push forward and we break through. So this morning, whatever it is that lies in front of you, rather than seeing as an obstacle, as something that will stop your life, see it as something God can use to grow. And, as James says, count it all joy. That might be really hard to get your head around, but we can have joy even in the most miserable of circumstances, because we know that God's way, His path for us, is straightforward. He wants to grow us. He wants us to be lacking nothing because we depend upon Him for everything. Have a wonderful Monday. God bless.